In today's video, we're going to be talking about what causes hypochondriasis and where health anxiety comes from. Hi everyone. Health anxiety is unfortunately a relatively common condition that can be significantly interfering in a person's life. It's known by a lot of different names like hypochondriasis or illness anxiety disorder. But regardless of what you call it, worries about your health can be extremely upsetting and impairing. In today's video, we're going to be talking about some of the causes and factors that play a role in the development of health anxiety. You might find that a lot of these factors make a lot of sense, but you may have never thought about how they work together to contribute to your health anxiety. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's start talking about health anxiety. Now, I've done a couple of videos already on the topic of health anxiety and the ways in which health anxiety can interfere or cause problems in a person's life. If you haven't already, I'd encourage you to take a look at those videos as they give a deeper explanation about the nature and consequences of health anxiety. Now, at the core of it, health anxiety is excessive, disproportionate concern or worry about your health that contributes to high levels of anxiety and sometimes feeling that fight or flight, panicky type response. So where does it come from? Why do some people develop health anxiety and others don't worry about their health at all? Well, the first set of factors relates to negative experiences that people may have had with regards to illnesses or their health. These negative health experiences can include things like developing or experiencing a medical problem yourself. People will sometimes think that health anxiety involves a person just making up or imagining that there's something wrong with their body, but sometimes health anxiety can occur because the person is actually experiencing a medical condition, which then gets magnified to be something much more dangerous or frightening than it actually is. Medical problems can contribute to us paying more attention or being more in tune with what's going on with our body. We become more aware of changes or different bodily sensations that trigger us to the possibility of other medical issues that could potentially lead to serious disease or even death. So for example, I might go see my doctor about a mole on my arm, and I'm told that it's a non-malignant form of cancer and that it's nothing to worry about and that it should be easily treated. But hearing that I have cancer triggers me to be hyper aware of other signs of potential cancer that are completely unrelated to the non-malignant mole on my arm. So I pay hyper attention to any physical sensations in my body and start to wonder whether or not they might be signs that I have cancer. Additionally, when doctors initially explain a new diagnosis to a patient, what they typically do is review all of the potential risks and complications of the diagnosis. That's appropriate, but this can lead to all sorts of anxiety as the person now becomes aware of information about risks and complications that they'd never known before. So now, this isn't to say that doctors shouldn't tell patients about potential risks and complications. But for someone who is prone to being anxious about their health, this type of information pours fuel on the anxiety fire. Additionally, in some cases, having a medical condition such as a non-malignant mole can potentially increase the likelihood of a person developing more such moles in the future. If I'm alerted to that fact, now I'm going to be even more hyper aware of the risk of developing new moles. So what ends up happening is I start to focus on all of the potential risks and complications and the possibility of recurrence of the condition. And if I focus on it, I think about all of the ways it can turn out badly. I think about all of the different ways it might affect me in the future. What do you think that's going to do to how I feel? Well, it's probably going to make me pretty anxious about my health and the possibility that something bad is going to happen. Another example of negative health experiences is having a family member or someone close to you experience a serious illness. This is especially notable for children or adolescents. So for example, for a young child or teenager, to see someone they care about go through a serious illness, potentially experiencing pain or suffering, this can have a significant impact on how they view health and illness more generally. If we care about someone who we watch deteriorate with a progressive illness, that can contribute to feelings of helplessness and a sense of there's nothing I can do if I'm ever in that situation. This can lead to a belief or a perception that an illness means that there's nothing that can be done, and that all illnesses or health conditions are going to lead to these catastrophic negative outcomes. And taking this one step further, the death of a loved one or a family member from a particular illness can be a significant negative health experience that can lead to high levels of health anxiety. Look, we're all going to die. That's a certainty. But for most of us, we tolerate the uncertainty of not knowing exactly when or how that's going to happen. But if we witness a loved one or someone close to us dying, it can contribute to thoughts about our own mortality and what our death is going to be like when we get to that time. And this can be extremely scary for people. This is particularly the case if your loved one has suffered from a prolonged disease or illness, such as long-standing cancer or Alzheimer's dementia, and you watch them deteriorate and potentially suffer as they got closer to death. This can lead us to relate illness with suffering, with death, and can lead to tremendous feelings of helplessness and vulnerability. Now, another potential factor that can contribute to health anxiety is having a family member with health anxiety. Again, particularly in childhood, if you have a parent or caregiver with health anxiety, they can model a lot of health anxiety promoting behaviors. And if that's all you know, you may feel that those health anxiety types of behaviors are normal or adaptive. Things like seeing your parent or caregiver constantly worry about their health, noticing them frequently checking for signs of illness, making repeated appointments to see their doctor, seeking all sorts of reassurance from other people about their health. If we grow up witnessing these types of behaviors, it's natural that we might learn that these are things we should do if we're anxious about our health. And finally, the last example of negative health experiences involves us coming across negative information about health via media and the internet. Look, the internet is a wonderful thing. It's wonderful to have access to all sorts of information. If not for the internet, you wouldn't be watching this video or hearing me talk about these factors that can contribute to health anxiety. But the internet can also be a tremendous source of information about health, health-related stories, articles about promoting health, but also information about illness and disease. Oftentimes, health information on the internet focuses on very rare diseases, incurable health conditions, or the most sensational awful types of diseases. If I'm looking up information about a toenail fungus, I'm likely to find all sorts of articles, videos, and pictures of the most extreme and nasty toenail funguses I could ever imagine. And that information is also going to lead me down the rabbit hole of all sorts of other types of skin conditions and diseases. So what may have started out as a little bit of a search about a relatively benign toenail issue leads to me being hyper anxious about developing all sorts of awful skin diseases. So all of these are examples of negative health experiences that can contribute to a person being more aware of all of the potential negative health conditions they may have, more in tune with potential signs and symptoms that they might have a negative health condition. They may perceive health conditions to be more dangerous or catastrophic than they might actually be, and feel a sense of helplessness and hopelessness to do anything about it. And the result of all of this is that it increases my sense of vulnerability related to my health. If I witness someone I care about experience a painful disease or illness, if I had a parent constantly worrying and seeking reassurance about their health, if I know all of the potential symptoms and outcomes of various diagnoses, if I've had health conditions that I perceived lead me to be at increased risk of experiencing even worse health conditions in the future, if all of these things are going on, what do you think that does to how I view my health and well-being? I'm likely to view myself as extremely vulnerable, as I lose my perspective on the actual probabilities or severity of these health conditions. And what I focus on is the high likelihood that I'm going to experience this awful illness that could potentially lead to my death. As a result of this vulnerability, it just becomes natural that I focus my attention on my health and all of the possible body sensations and health problems that I might be at risk of. Whereas someone who doesn't have all of these vulnerabilities may just simply ignore that random physical sensation that just goes away by itself. So I like to think of this as kind of a first step in understanding why health anxiety happens and where it comes from. Now, knowing this information isn't going to directly make you feel better or eliminate health anxiety, but this is the start of a model for developing a new understanding of health anxiety. Because these factors that I'm talking about are part of what contributes to maintaining high levels of anxiety about health. And if you've experienced a lot of health anxiety, what I'd encourage you to do, what I'd encourage you to think about is, what are some of the experiences that you've had in your life that may have increased your concerns or your fear about your health? Did you experience a medical condition in the past that may have led to increased anxiety or a sense of vulnerability around your health? Do you have a family member or a loved one who suffered a disease or illness and who may have passed away from that condition? Were your parents or people you looked up to in your childhood anxious about their health? Did they demonstrate a lot of health anxiety behaviors? Have you pursued information on the internet that's contributed to high levels of anxiety and worry about your health? I'd encourage you to think about some of these things, as it can help you develop a better understanding of where the health anxiety came from. It typically doesn't just come out of the blue, and if you look for it, you'll probably be able to recognize some of these negative health experiences that have led to you feeling anxious and vulnerable about your health. And so in future videos, I'm going to be talking about the next step in this model, which focuses on ways in which we try to protect ourselves through developing various rules and assumptions about our health. So I'd encourage you to take a look and keep an eye out for that video. So I hope that makes sense. I'd love to hear any comments or thoughts that you have about this, about experiences that might lead to the development of health anxiety and feeling of vulnerability. So please leave me some comments in the comments section down below. If you've been enjoying my videos and would like to see more, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. So that's all for today's video. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.